Devon, we talked briefly about what the symptoms are in a classroom. If you're a proactive teacher or if you're in educational administration and you want to do something about your classrooms, what could you do?
There are lots of things you can do. So first of all, we would want to look at the physical environment. We have to try and reduce the amount of extraneous noise as much as possible. So really simple things like having carpet on the floor, rubber tips on the bottom of chairs, cork boards and cloth boards to absorb noise. And then for our child with auditory processing, where are we going to seat that child? So we need to seat the child quite close to the teacher so that the teacher can check for comprehension and make sure the child is understanding instructions, so she can give those subtle checks. So we don't want our child with auditory processing disorder up the very back of the room where the teacher's not going to have access to checking for comprehension.
Some schools have gone away, moved completely away from desks in rows. Is that a good approach?
Well, actually, for our child with auditory processing, it will depend again on where we seat them. They really should be ideally facing the teacher, because if we have our children sitting around desks, in clusters, you're only going to get a quarter of children at each table facing the teacher if the teacher's standing at the front of the room. So for our child with auditory processing, it's not the best way to seat the child.
And do we need to be that concerned that we start thinking about other noise, like noise coming from outside the classroom or air conditioners or fans and things like that?
Absolutely. Our child with auditory processing, we know one of the most distressing symptoms for them is dealing with background noise. And so we need our child with auditory processing away from fans and air conditioners and traffic outside, so not near a window that's, for example, on a busy road. Not near a corridor where you'd have other children running up and down, shouting and laughing. So, just being thoughtful of where we sit that child and how we organise the environment.
So direct communication, face-to-face, removal of background noise, that's already going to do a lot without having to make major modifications to the classroom.
That's right. But also, one of the things that really helps our child with auditory processing is amplifying the teacher's voice. And we can do that in two ways. One we call a personal FM system, where the student wears a little very tiny device in the student's ear, and the teacher wears a microphone. So the teacher's voice is really going direct to the ear of our child with auditory processing. The limitations there is they're quite expensive, and the teacher has to learn how to use that so that when she's speaking maybe to another child, she has to make sure that her mic is turned off or that she's covered it up. Another way of improving what we call the signal to noise ratio for our students is having the whole classroom amplified with a sound field system. There are various ones of those on the market today, some of them quite affordable, where the teacher again wears a microphone and the sound amplifier is placed in a strategic position in the classroom where that sound is delivered equally to every child in the classroom.
So like a public address system?
That's right. So whether the child is sitting in the front row or the back row, they will equally receive the teacher's voice. Teachers also love these devices because they don't have to shout anymore. And so it's very good for the teacher because the teacher will not end up with vocal strain from shouting at the children.
Oh, no teachers shout at children. It doesn't happen that often, does it?
Well, you'd be surprised.
So are a lot of schools taking up these systems? I mean, if say, for example, a sound field system is going to be better for everybody, are people doing that?
Some schools are. I know in our area here, several of both public and private schools have made their schools auditory processing friendly. And so I think it is becoming more common. And as new schools are being designed, I think a lot of schools are bearing these issues in mind to help all students.
Devon, we have also talked briefly before about multiple intelligences. Can we bring a little bit of that in when we're dealing with auditory processing disorder strategies?
Absolutely, because I think if the teacher knows that, and every classroom is going to have at least one or two children in the classroom with either an auditory processing disorder or a language processing disorder. So if the teacher can use multisensory strategies as much as possible, all of the students are going to benefit from that, not just our students with auditory processing. So we know these children have much more difficulty processing in background noise, retaining what they hear, and processing instructions. So if the teacher can accompany verbal instructions with visual cues, such as diagrams, graphs, even written summaries, it really helps our student.
Or practical demonstrations, perhaps?
Absolutely. Hands-on teaching is very good. Many children we know learn best by doing than by listening. So the more practical strategies we can use, the better.